Welcome back to some new r/PettyRevenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Let Me Ask. I was working part-time as a technical support for a local dial-up internet service provider. It was just me and my coworker Kitty on shift. And yes, as the name suggests, Kitty is a woman. A customer calls in and Kitty answers. Immediately he asks, "Is there a man there? I have a technical problem." Kitty, ever the professional, just smiles and transfers the call to me. Now, here's the thing. Kitty had been in tech support longer than I had, and we often helped each other out. It wasn't about who was more skilled. But since the caller insisted on speaking to me, I decided to give him exactly what he wanted, just not in the way he expected. Every time he asked me a question, I said, "One moment please." Then I badly covered the mouthpiece, turned to Kitty and said, "Hey Kitty, he wants to know," and repeated the question. Kitty gave me the answer, and I repeated it back to him. We kept this going the entire call. Even with the slight delay, it was still a quick resolution, only about 5 minutes. But let's just say, he didn't sound particularly thrilled that, in the end, Kitty solved his problem. The next story is called Work Replacement. My first job out of high school was landscaping for a high-end hotel near my hometown. I loved the work. It was demanding but rewarding. After a few years, the owner decided to retire to Florida and sold the hotel to a businessman. That's when everything went downhill. The new owner had some serious spending habits, gambling and drinking. He constantly drained funds from the hotel to support his vices, and it showed. The hotel went from posh and elegant to, well, let's just say it was no longer high class. Despite the rapid decline in appearance, I stayed loyal to my job. I kept doing the landscaping, and at least my paycheck stayed steady, unlike other departments. About 6 months into this downward spiral, the owner introduced me to his nephew. He told me, "I want you to train him so you don't have to do all the landscaping yourself." Sounds good, right? Except this trainee was more interested in playing Pokemon than working. Even when I gave him simple tasks like raking leaves or watering flowers, I'd find him hiding somewhere playing his Game Boy or sitting in the lounge drinking with his uncle. I kept reporting his lack of effort, but then the owner dropped a bombshell. His nephew was going to replace me in 6 months. He was only paying his nephew minimum wage, while I was making almost 3 times that due to my experience. At that point, it was clear. I wasn't being replaced for performance. I was being replaced because I was too expensive. I immediately started looking for another job, but I kept working at the hotel in the meantime. Let's just say my effort level adjusted accordingly. I showed the nephew some basics, but for the most part, I let him figure it out on his own. By the time I left, the neglect was painfully obvious. Poison ivy was growing around entrances. The once manicured lawns looked like overgrown meadows. But that was just the beginning. 6 months after I left, disaster struck. The nephew, in his infinite wisdom, decided that the best way to remove weeds and poison ivy was to douse the mulch in gasoline and set it on fire. His plan was to stand nearby with a garden hose and put it out once the weeds were gone. Spoiler alert, that didn't work. The dry leaves and landscaping materials caught fire instantly. And before he knew it, the flames spread into the hotel itself. The fire department was called, the hotel was evacuated, and the nephew? He was arrested for arson. The owner was forced to sell the hotel and restaurant to a franchise. But karma wasn't done yet. He was later audited by the IRS and arrested for tax fraud. The restaurant was bought by a Mexican food franchise and does great business. The damaged hotel rings were torn down and turned into an outdoor banquet area. The main hotel was renovated and is thriving again. It barely resembles what it looked like when I worked there, but at least, after all the chaos, it has a happy ending. The last story is called Terrible pastor. Back in the 90s, I took a summer job at a church my grandparents attended, and my family would occasionally visit. I was 16 at the time, and even considered becoming a pastor after high school. The church was run by a husband and wife pastor team. They both seemed welcoming and would answer my questions about divinity programs, degrees, and internships. This couple had replaced the founding pastor, who had passed away a few years earlier. That pastor had even built a house next to the church for whoever led the congregation. Like many churches, they hosted a one-week vacation Bible school. After the second day, the female pastor noticed that some of the snacks and drinks were running low. She asked me to go with her to a grocery store to pick up more supplies. This particular store was known for hiring adults with intellectual disabilities as beggars. As we stood in line, there was a beggar with a speech impediment, chatting with customers and the cashier. He was doing his job, being friendly, nothing out of the ordinary. Then the female pastor turned to me and laughed. She said, "People like that shouldn't be working here. They are just a nuisance." I was shocked. I lost all respect for her in that moment, but I didn't say anything. And to this day, I regret not speaking up. I finished my job at the church that summer, worked 2 more weeks, and then school started again. The next summer, I got a job at a local hardware and lumber store. The owner of the store was an amazing guy. He had a daughter with Down syndrome and was incredibly generous. He gave discounts to churches, homeless shelters, and other non-profits. One day, the husband and wife pastor team contacted the store. They wanted lumber and materials to remodel the bathroom in the pastor's house. The store owner knew I had worked at that church the previous summer, because I had listed it as a reference. He casually mentioned that the pastors would be coming in later to look at materials. At that moment, I made a decision. I told the store owner about what the female pastor had said at the grocery store the year before. He was not happy. He said, "I'll still do business with them, but they are not getting a discount." And that was that. I never told the pastors why their discount disappeared, but I always took a little satisfaction knowing that the female pastor's own attitude cost her church money. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.